The next speaker joining us today is addressing us on the issue of pressing relevance to our ecosystem today. Speaking on the subject of the India versus Bharat equation is Mr. Madan Padaki, co-founder and CEO of Ruban Bridge. Ruban Bridge is a rural last-mile services platform. Today, One Bridge, a brand of the company, is present in over 25 districts across South India. Mr. Padaki also serves as the co-founder and trustee at Head Held High Foundation, the co-founder and director of Sylvant Advisors, and as convener at Million Jobs Mission and Social Venture Partners. Please welcome on stage Mr. Madan Padaki. This session is brought to you by Sundaram Mutual Fund.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. A lot of customers in Chennai when I was running my previous venture, Meritrack. So I used to come into Chennai almost every 2 weeks. And my most dreaded moments was getting into the auto. You try to figure out how do you ensure that the auto fellow does not fleece you for every trip you do. And the big lesson was you can never beat local knowledge. You can never get into a city, act like a local without being a local. And that is one of the lessons that stayed with me. And that's what I want to share with you as we go along this whole path of where does Bharat versus India, where does this debate happen? So I've begun to learn the nuances of rural. I'm a city-born Bangalore, one of those few Bangaloreans left in Bangalore. Grew up in the heart of Bangalore. So from the vantage point of where we operate, we see three key forces that are reshaping Bharat. One is the rising aspirations of rural citizens. Every other article, every other conversation we have, I'm amazed at what kind of aspirations, be it for anything. It could be for products, it could be for services, it could be for jobs. The kind of aspirations that exists out there is equal, if not more, than what we see in those cities. The second is the rising hopes of rural youth. Education attainment levels are going up. Youth are no longer saying, you know what, I just want to be a daily wage laborer, but I hear terms from school dropouts saying, I want to be an auditor, I want to be a businessman. And the third, which is fascinating, is the rising onslaught of exponential technologies. I always keep thinking that none of us foresaw the pace at which smartphones and mobile internet will overtake our lives. It is only now we are playing catch up of a variety of apps, let alone in rural, but in urban as well. So when you put these three forces together, there's a fascinating opportunity that emerges in the middle. That how do you treat rural not as rural, but more as an emergence of the urban trends that we see, and that urban is really not urban that we can transplant out there, but is the new rural that emerges, which we call as Ruban. And that's the name behind Ruban Bridge and Rubanomics, right? So One Bridge really started out as an experiment to say, how do we truly understand these three forces? And how do we, at the core, create jobs in rural India? How do you create entrepreneurs, job creators in rural, at the same time accelerating abundance in rural, right? So we believe that if we get this formula right, consumers will win, rural youth will win, brands will win, because we are lining up all the ducks for products and services to flow more naturally back and forth between rural and urban. And that's the whole premise. Early stages, it's been about 2 years in the making. We've been able to take literally zero-educated, illiterate village youth, and in 6 months' time, we transform them to be English-speaking, computer-literate knowledge professionals. We run about 40 rural centers across the country, 11 states, have about 1,400 youth in transformational training now. So it's listening to the voices of these youth that been trying to understand what's truly happening here and trying to connect the dots. So just to give you a perspective, we have about 600 odd entrepreneurs in 1,500 villages in AP and Karnataka, about half of them women. We target about 5 million population is what we cover. We have about 500,000 registered consumers that we've engaged with. And for these consumers, we have delivered mobile phones, TVs, refrigerators, two-wheelers, tractors, insurance, loans, digital literacy programs, so on and so forth, all through the entrepreneurs. So our model is that our entrepreneurs have an app, and they act as abundance ambassadors for the villages. It's an assisted commerce model. They ask what they want, and we then enable the supply chain. We also run a fairly large supply chain distribution network in about 40-odd towns. We've delivered about 4 million packages. So that's the experience that I'm trying to package as learning of saying, A, that there is a massive opportunity out there, but the mindset that all of us as entrepreneurs, as business owners, must be different. And it's not very different from what we heard from the morning. I just want to put it in a perspective from a rural angle. So I want to share a few stories with you of my experiences and share the learnings from the stories. This is a village called Madanayakanhalli, which is like 30 kilometers from the highway of Davanagere district in Karnataka. We have an entrepreneur here called Manju. This is Manju. I was asking Manju, what's the challenges in your village? He asked me a very simple question. He asked me, how much do you pay for a photocopy? Supposing you're at home and somebody comes from a bank and says, I want one Aadhaar copy, and you have to go out and get a photocopy done, how much do you pay? So I said, hey, I step out of my house, the photocopy machine is right across the road, 50 paisa for a black and white copy. He says, guess what my transaction cost in Madanayakanhalli is for a photocopy? The same use case. A bank comes, asks me for my Aadhaar copy, how much do I have to spend? I said, 5 rupees, 10 rupees. He says, it's 150 rupees. Because he says the closest photocopier shop is 8 kilometers away. Right? If I want to go to the shop, I got to take if I don't have a bike, I got to catch a bus. Bus comes once in half an hour, 45 minutes. I take a bus to the village, go there. Power is a question mark. Sometimes I got to wait an hour because there's no power. He charges 10 rupees per copy, per photocopy, because he's the only guy around. And the same routine comes back that I wait for a bus for 40 minutes. He says, one photocopy for me takes about 4 hours. A travel time cost of 20, 30 rupees, 10 rupees, plus if you take my opportunity cost of working, that's around 150, 200 rupees gone. He says, now you tell me what is different in my village. And I realize how much of access do we take for granted. That access means a whole lot to them. Access means a girl child dropping out of school because there is no street light from the village to the nearest bus stop. Manju's sister herself had to drop out of college because the father said, hey, it's too risky. I can't let you go, I can't let you come back at 6 p.m. in the night without a light on, right? So mobility. So if you start looking at it from an access standpoint, which we take a lot for granted in the cities, the life world changes here. So that's one part. The second part was interesting. This was about how we take our own assumptions and superimpose on the market. And this is a very interesting experiment. We were working with a large car manufacturer, and we said, hey, can we do test drives in the villages? The guy said, absolutely. I'll give you a car. And he gave us a car which is like 3 years old. A car that's not sold well. So we said, fine, if you know these markets, we'll take the car. So we took the car for a test drive to about 25 odd villages, 2 days. Nobody sniffed the car. We got 3 test drives. Several villages, we were told, why are you conning us? Why are you getting something so old that nobody's bought? Get us something new. So we went back to that dealer, begged, pleaded, cajoled, and said, give us a new car or a recent car. And there was a car that was just launched, kind of pleaded, got one car for a day, went back to the same villages, 78 test drives, 2 days. There was a sense of celebration in many of the villages. They were saying, this is the first time ever that any new car has come into our village. Nobody's brought a new car into our village. And the 4th day, one order for a car from one of these villages. The guy was shocked. The dealer said, hey, I haven't generated an order in Mysore, and you're generating an order from some back of the beyond village in Mandya, right? And we've done a variety of test drives in these villages by bringing in many brands into the thing. That old man out there, he asked me the question, whether I buy or not is my choice. You show me everything that you have. The most expensive one, the least expensive one, I will choose. Don't assume that because I'm a villager and I look poor, that you show me only the most inexpensive car. He says this happens all the time. This happens all the time because you think, hey, these guys don't need any choices. They just need the cheapest product to sell them, and anyway they can't afford it. And that story hit me so hard. I sit in several government meetings where we're sitting in some 5-star hotel in Delhi saying, this is what the rural consumer needs, and we need it at this price. And I'm saying, where are those guys? Are they telling us that they need this? We're making our own assumptions, right? And I think that's the second lesson. Abhishek was another fascinating guy. He comes from a village called Kilara in Mandya. He runs a small tea shop, one of our early entrepreneurs. So Abhishek is an Abundant ambassador for that village. One of the things that Abhishek has sold a bunch of bikes, cars, two-wheelers. About 8 months ago, Abhishek asked me a very interesting question. We got him to Bangalore Forum Mall that Sudhakar talked about. We took him for a tour. He says, why can't we have a mall like this in Kilara? I said, Abhishek, who will build a mall here, right? You have 5,000 people in the village. it's not economical. And he made a statement. He says, sir, you guys talk technology and all that, you can't get me a mall in my village, is it? And that's when the light bulb popped, saying, hey, why should it be a physical mall? Why can't it be a virtual mall? And that prompted us about 6 months ago to launch India's first virtual reality mall for rural consumers. Abhishek now does VR experiences to all consumers who come to his chai shop and in Kilara. So today we have about 400 entrepreneurs who carry these headsets, and we have done about 50,000 VR experiences. And the beauty of the technology is that now we've built analytics at the back end where I know which village, which entrepreneur has shown how many sessions, have they like the red tractor or the green tractor, in the tractor, what have they gazed on. We are able to get all of that and pass it back to the brands. Right? Incidentally, that's Abhishek pitching to the government of AP, saying, why only in our village, why can't it happen around the world? This is the special chief secretary to CM. Incidentally, this conversation with Abhishek triggered us getting started off in AP. We just launched last week with about 52 entrepreneurs in Vizag. Right? So the idea that can you create local youth as entrepreneurs, not as sales guys, not as commission agents, but truly as abundance ambassador to the village. One of the things I ask Abhishek is, what is the biggest difference that OneBridge has made? Last year, nobody cared about me. I was just a tea shop boy. Today, anybody buying anything, a mobile, a TV, I'm the first port of call. People say, hey, don't buy anything without asking Abhishek. Moving to the entrepreneur side, and this is the Manju that I talked about, you see his sister standing next. Education is still a valued pathway, and it burns my heart to see that we are not able to connect the dots from education to jobs, right? Manju's dad earns about 50,000 rupees a year in good years as agriculture and income. He owns a 2-acre land. He has 2 girls. One of the girls was in college when we went. When I asked him, what's your investment? What's your saving? He looked at his 2 girls and 1 boy, and he says, they are my investments. Because both the girls are BA, DEd, B.Ed. One of the girls, he's saying the B.Ed college is shifted, so I'm actually asking her to stop, but she wants to go to Bangalore and study. He pays about 1 lakh rupees in fees every year. And he borrows the rest of the money from the market. Right? And his eyes shine when he says, listen, I'm making them educated so they'll take care of me. I don't have the heart to say, where are the jobs for these guys? Right? Where will they find, among the millions of youth entering the workforce, where do we find income generation opportunities for them? And I think that's the key if you want to get India out of the poverty trap or the demographic disaster that that's waiting to happen. Entrepreneurial spirit is very high. This is my favorite story. There's a guy called Manjunath, again, there's so many Manjunaths in my life, in a village called Abhigire. He's a carpenter. He is a 12th standard dropout, runs a small, it's a 5,000 people village, runs a small carpentry shop. So I spent a day with him many years ago. And I asked him, so how do you generate business? We had a lot of conversations. So he told me, you tell me, you're in a village, 5,000 people, how will you generate business? So I stood there and said, hoarding. He said, too expensive, I don't have the money. He says, go stand near a bus stop and give brochures. He says, who has the time? Who will run my shop? I don't have the time. So I said, what do you do? He says, 6 months ago, I stumbled onto something that seems to be working. I said, what's it? He says, when I make a cot or a TV, or a TV showcase cabinet or a sofa set, the customers pay me about 300 rupees to transport it to their houses, right, on a tractor. He says, I pay the tractor fellow another 200 rupees. Ask him to take the most circuitous route to reach the village rather than the direct route. I put my nephew on the tractor. He has a drum. I just write a handwritten note saying, this sofa being sold to so-and-so person for this price, and this is my number, call me. So he's got a referenceability. He's got a true customer testimonial, so to speak, and he spent 200 rupees. He says, every delivery, I get 8 to 10 calls. I convert 2 of them into sales. I said, that's fascinating. Have they ever taught us all of this at B schools? Right? And that is the key here that we need to come into, right? And I always wonder, we now keep talking about the gig economy as a new thing. I keep thinking the rural folks have always been a gig forever. Again, this guy, Praveen, 10th standard dropout, runs an electrical store in the morning, does solar installations, helps his dad on his farm. 2 years ago, he did something which blew my mind away. He says, I put all my savings, I went to Belgaum, bought an agarbatti making machine for 1.5 lakhs, I now installed it. Saturday, Sunday nights, I with my mother, make agarbatti and we sell agarbatti. I say, listen, how many things do you juggle? He says, I have to earn 10,000, 15,000 rupees a month. I'll do whatever it takes for me to get that. How do you apply the gig that we talk and make their lives more productive, right? And that's what we do. At OneBridge, we say, hey, spend as much hours you can. You want 2 hours a day? Spend 2 hours a day. Here is my app. Do tasks, earn money, right? The more tasks you do, the more money you'll get, right? So I think that's the way of looking at leveraging the youth. These are all women who heard about us. They all got together in Mandya in Abhishek's house and said, we want a piece of action as well. Why are you taking only guys? So we ran a training program for them for digital literacy. We now run a large-scale digital literacy programs using our women. Now they're selling kitchen appliances, beauty products, so on and so forth. And the beauty of it is, the other lesson is ask them. So again, we went with our products. They said, I don't want all this. You give me what we want, and we're now trying to source their products, right? So what are the key lessons? Before we get there, and this has been there for a long time, saying that Bharat needs a bridge to the digital world. This is a recent report by Omidyar, Google Bain, which said that internet penetration in India, in rural, is a mere 15% as opposed to 55% in urban, right? And we're seeing that across. So a lot of investors ask us, hey, everybody will have a phone and an app, and what will your guys do? And I say, that's a long time to come, because I won't get into the details of the slide, but what we've seen when we did various surveys is that barely about 4% of the population there has ever transacted online, right? A large part of the population is evolution in transition, right? We have 54% who may have a smartphone but have used it only as a phone. 34% have used only native apps. Facebook, WhatsApp is internet for them. So we say that, listen, when you're talking of 600 billion people and you have 85, 90% of the people who have never transacted, I think there's enough and more of services that can be built in to create jobs by using technology. And I think that's the other myth that we understand, that, oh, rural tech is of course there with Geo, with all the broadband wars, 3G, 4G costs coming down, but it's still a long way from transaction adoption, right? So the lessons, to summarize, A, listen hard. We need to listen continuously, not as dipsticks. So interestingly, we were working with one company who said, I did a rural survey. So I said, give me the list of villages. They gave me a few villages in my list. I went to those guys and said, hey, do you remember a guy who came? And they said, yeah. I said, what did you tell him? He said, we asked us a bunch of questions. Half of it we didn't understand. We didn't want to make him feel bad. So for everything he asked, we said, yes. And that is a survey on which they built the product, right? So I said, let me go redo this with the local folks and listen to them hard rather than just a survey. So we are now trying to use our entrepreneurs as listening posts. Every month, you've got to give me so many voices from your village. And we are aggregating the data that's coming out to give trends. 2, don't go with solutions, co-create. Ask them what they want, right? We're helping a large solar company relaunch their products. But we said, we're not going to sell it. We're going to show your products, ask for feedback, saying what more do you need or what less do you need. Interestingly, they gave us a feature list of 30 features. About 18 of them, people have said, I don't need them. So we're now saying, spare it down. These are the features that they need. These are the features that they don't need. Now, can we co-create the product with them, right? 3rd, let us deliver experiences. The consumer experience that we talk about does not exist because it's all hand-me-downs, right? So I imagine that sometime we'll be setting up a rural consumer experience store. Imagine having a virtual mall equivalent, but a physical store where people can walk in. Not just experience today's technology, but tomorrow's technologies as well, because all of this is around the bend. IoT in agriculture, healthcare, edtech, right? Financial, fintech. How can you create experience zones for consumers to come and understand what's happening, right? And then the adoption is going to happen, right? And lastly, we have to operate on trust. We've seen enough and more of us who've gone in, done something, right? And said, okay, it's not working, come out. But the communities have borne the brunt of that. And a lot of people ask us, are you guys for real? Will you stay here for long? How do we trust you? And to us, this is the most important thing, that as urban guys, they always see a lot of us with distrust saying, you guys come in, try to do something and get out. How can we be a part of that community? And I think if we can build all this, there is a massive opportunity to bridge the gap, not just from a commercial standpoint, but also to truly build an inclusive India that all of us dream about. Right? So thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. And thank you so much. look forward to continuing the conversations with Thai Chennai, and thanks to the team for inviting me here. Thank you.